Oh, what's up, everybody? I am back with a new movie review, and today I'll be covering two movies this today, and it's Jumanji, and it's based off a, uh, uh, I guess it'll be a children's book, sort of, or a novel. It's kind of sort of like uh, Jurassic Park. I never read the book. Well, I never read the book of neither Jurassic Park or Jumanji. But if you're a millennial, you definitely grew up with uh, Jurassic Park and Jumanji. But man, Jumanji is it was definitely a big cultural phenomenon. And it took a while before eventually we got a sequel. There's a lot of stuff uh, that it was the initial plan was to eventually make a prequel, but it was sitting on the shelves for so long it couldn't get greenlit until somebody made like a fan made uh, uh, prequel to the origin story of the board game. Now, speaking of board games, fun fact: there is an actual board game of Jumanji that I had. Well, not me, but my cousins had as children. Don't think they had it anymore, but I thought about buying it mostly for nostalgia purposes because it's like what $20 on Amazon, just to have because people don't really play board games like that no more, which is a shame because it's a good family. Board games are a good family game, and like game night kind of stuff. And that's one of the main reasons why I chose, because I ain't bound to watch the next level, but I wanted to review Jumanji and Welcome to the Jungle for this month because Thanksgiving is about family and friends and camaraderie, and board games bring people together. And crap, this I have to jump all over the place instead of like staying on point. But yeah, I remember playing the board game as a kid, but the origin story, I looked it up online. You can look it up online. It's actually go into great detail, and it definitely took some uh, not inspirations, but they definitely researched this, definitely read the book, and just to truncate it here, Jumanji was created uh, in Africa by this tribal chief, meant for him and his sons to like play together. And this this colonial person, during the slave trade and everything like that, the colonizers starts coming over to certain areas in Africa to take people. In this tribal chief's village, this huntsman came and pillaged, killed a lot of people. But the witch doctor put a curse on the board game. Even had like the cards and everything like that, with not rules, but like you hit a certain. It's kind of like you know community chess and chance and Monopoly. He got those kind of cards that he gathered them, threw them in a fire, and it kind of like put a curse over the entire game. So when you play Jumanji or watch it on the movie, we see those words spiral into existence on the green gem. That's kind of like the cards being revealed every time you land on a particular space. So, uh, all the people involved got sucked into the game, and years later, the because in the beginning of the film, it's you see like uh, these two boys in like the 1800s, 1800 something, was the son are the sons of this adventurer, kind of like a Rick O'Connell type of guy from The Mummy. Uh, Discovered this, a completely like the ruins of this village from what happened many years before. Uh, Found the abandoned board game. Him and his partner, decide to play, not realizing the danger involved. And these two either they got killed or they got sucked into the game, whatever the case may be. So eventually, that adventurer's belongings got discovered along with the board game and sent to America. That's how it got into America in the first place. And the belongings went to the family of this guy. The two boys found the board game, played with it with their mother, and all those. That's why it's all the animals and you know uh, tribal music. All that stuff is very African oriented. So it's like bats and lions and all these other plants and everything like that. All are are the type of species that are found only in Africa because this game was created in Africa. So uh, they couldn't destroy it. They couldn't destroy this thing. They are because the rules involve force people who start this game to play it to this end because it's semi sentient. Is It has a particular goal that it was created for, to bring people together, force them to play. It wants to be played. That's why when you hear these tribal drums, it kind of draws people in, kind of like moths to a flame. Uh, it essentially tricks people into playing it one way or other. It wants to be played. Uh, and in it, and you end up learning something as you go through, because like any game, whether it's a board game or a video game, you know, you it brings people together. And that's what a game's meant to do. I should have looked this up earlier. I want to go over the rules of Jumanji. All right. Uh, each player chooses a pawn and places it on the matching uh, color start space. Shuffle the danger cards and place them face down. Draw foggy. Plastic. No. No, I'm trying to find like the movie rules, not like the real life board game rules. Okay, here we go. A game for those who seek to find a way to leave their world behind. You roll the dice to move your token, doubles get another turn. The first player to reach the end wins. Ventures beware. Do not begin unless you intend to finish. The exciting consequences of the game will vanish only when a player has reached Jumanji and called out its name. And I'm on the wiki site. Uh, uh, Abilities: drumming. Jumanji dislikes being left alone and unplayed, therefore will emit an enchanting but primal and primitive warlike drumbeat to attract the attention of any nearby children and entice them into playing the game. Adults seem to be oblivious to the drummings. Uh, Evidently, when Allen reached for the drumbeat source in 1969, while the construction workers headed for the snack van, unaware of the drums, while in 1995, Nora Shepherd tried to catch her niece and nephew's attention when they were clearly entranced by the drumming coming from the attic. Uh, Auto control. Up to four players can participate in a round of Jumanji gameplay where turns are determined by whoever starts rolling the dice when they take out game playing pieces, which are automatically telekinetically controlled to move along the paths on their own. The tokens automatically move along the pathways by themselves and cannot be removed by human hands when set on the board. Once a specific player rolls on their turn, they must continue to play or the game will come to a halt and reject rolls from anyone else. The four game tokens or pieces are idle like figurines of keratin rhinoceros, metallic elephant, obsidian crocodile, or jade monkey. Consequences. A prominent feature in all of its appearances once the player's piece lands on a square, Jumanji emits a clue within the crystal ball to provide a rhyming riddle message, informing players what will begin to manifest into reality wherever the text reads, placing randomized consequences into the real world to challenge players. The animals, humans, the danger, and other characters that live in Jumanji can't normally be killed, and they can only be stopped by finishing the game. Hence, why the instructions advise players to not begin unless they intend to finish by reaching the game's crystal ball center, calling out the name Jumanji, and therefore undo all the consequences and alternative timelines of the game. Uh, um, Many players try to get rid of it, usually by burying it or floating it down a river to sink at sea. But due to its magic, there are rumors that the original version of the game still survives somewhere, waiting to be played yet again, so it could use its dangerous yet character building power on those who need/want to leave their world behind the most. Uh, 2017. I'll just briefly bring this up. Jumanji retained the time-altering powers of the board game. However, the video game's effects was different than the board games. While the board game reverses reverse time for Alan Parrish and Sarah Whittle to when they started playing in 1969 and relegated everything that happens to an alternate timeline that only they could remember. This was not so far this not so far the for the video game. Instead, the video game restored players to their original time periods, but didn't completely rewrite history or the players' memories, as seen with the teenagers' inability to recall Alex Vrick's house being anything but the dilapidated ruin that they knew. So, anyway, uh, let's continue on with everything here. So this was directed by Joe Johnston. Uh, he did like Honey I Shrunk the Kids, The Rocketeer, Jurassic Park 3. Wow, that was him. Oh, and 2010's Wolfman. Wow. It stars, of course, the late great Robin Williams as Alan Parrish, Kristen Dunst as Judy Shepard, Bradley Pierce as Peter Shepard. You know, they brother and sister. David Allen Greer as Carl Bentley, Bonnie Hunt as Sarah Whittle, Jonathan Hyde uh, uh, as Alan's father, uh, as well as the big game hunter, Van Pelt. Uh, uh, Bebe in Newworth as Norris Shepherd, Judy and Peter's aunt. We got Adam Han Bird who plays a young Alan, and Laura Bell Bundy as a young Sarah Whittle. So this had a budget of $65 million and came out at the box office with uh, a little over $260 million. This did amazingly well. Back in 1995 standards, this would be close to a billion, or at least $500 million by today's standards, more than likely. So it did like a fantastic job. Um. Anyway, like I said before, uh, when the boys early in the film, after their ordeal and beating the Jumanji game, they decide, okay, we need to bury this sucker. We can't allow this to, get out because they couldn't destroy it. It's protected by magic. So the next best thing they do is to bury the sucker. So they buried it, uh, and then years later in 1969, matter of fact, it just dawned on me that we do like at least 3 different time skips in this film. In 1969, we see a young Alan who's getting bullied by some local kids. He runs to his father's shoe factory, trying to hope to getting him a ride home. Um, this is where he sees the family friend, or kind of sort of uh, uh, Carl, who has this sneaker idea. And mind you, this is 1969, so I'm not sure like when the invention of the sneaker actually came about. Matter of fact, let me look this up really quick. When did a sneaker actually was invented? Oh wow! Sneakers was first invented in the in the 1830s in by a Liverpool Rubber Company in England. Oh, so it wasn't like the first sneaker idea, but he had like his own take on sneakers. Kind of like he was trying to do his own Air Jordan type of thing before Air Jordan was a thing. Uh, 'Cause he wanted to pitch that shoe idea to Alan's father. Uh, and uh, Alan inadvertently left the shoe prototype on a conveyor belt, which eventually gets chewed up and spit out. Uh, but we see this right away, the dynamic between Alan's father and him, where Sam Paris is very kind of like a very strict dad. It's still loving dad, but uh, he expressed to his son like, is that uh, whatever that bully's name was, he bothering you again? Look, you gotta, you know, you know, you're not a little boy anymore. You gotta be able to face your fears like a man. You know, you know, so uh, you go out there, you face them, and I know it's hard, but in the long run, it'll be good for you, kind of thing. Of course, the father didn't know the exact details or the context, because kind of, sort of, I want to say I don't want to blame Alan, but I guess he never got a chance to fully explain himself. That there isn't just that one kid. He got a group of his friends, so clearly was outnumbered. So that's why he tried to rush to get uh, uh, his father to give him a ride home. Uh, Although Carl saw those bullies out there messing with Alan's bike, and he didn't bother to say anything like, "Hey, some kids is messing with your bike." But no, he just stood by and just watched it happen. Uh, so Alan went outside to face his adversaries, while Carl takes the rap for Alan. Uh, as like the conveyor belt gets like torn up because of the shoe being left behind, which resulted in, you find out later, Carl's firing. Uh, so Alan went outside. He stood his ground and faced the bullies, and of course they beat his ass, which is a shame. Uh, and they took his bike. That's when Alan hears tribal drum beats coming from this uh, construction site, where he finds this buried chest with the Jumanji board game. So he takes it home and he hides it. And his father apologized because, after he realized that it wasn't just that one kid and clearly was outnumbered, he tells him right away, because I didn't remember this as a kid. I guess, I looked at it through the lens of a child and thought, like, man, the father was kind of like a scumbag for letting this kid being left, unassisted when it comes to a bully. But looking back, I was like, oh wow, he did like acknowledge the fact that, yeah, like you, like, look, I'm sorry, I did not realize you was outnumbered. If I knew, I wouldn't have let you go out there alone like that. But I want to let you know I am proud of you because you took it like a man. You stood up, despite that you were outnumbered. You faced them, and in a way, the dad was kind of right in this moment, in this particular context. Like, yeah, any father would be proud of their son. The fact that, despite that you was outnumbered, you faced them up and took it like a man. Now, of course, I kind of wish that, probably teach his son how to a box or something so he can like be able to fend them off. But, you know, Uh, but it was like a still a proud moment. Then he starts to show him pamphlets to this boarding school that the Paris family men always go to, but the boy wasn't trying to hear it. Because he thinks his father's trying to send him away because he doesn't understand. He's a child. He just sees his father just being like just mean and like doesn't seem like he cared at all. Like he didn't warn him or something. Uh, which is obviously farthest from the truth. But he just as a kid, he just didn't feel like his father, took the time to actually show some level of care, or like didn't sound like he cared about his well-being at all. Uh, so they had a blow-up argument because he didn't want to go. The parents leave for this gala, that was being held in his honor, where Sarah Whittle, right as like Alan was planning on running away from home, Sarah Whittle comes to give back his bike because the main bully, she was, I guess, like, dating him, and she hears the drum beats of the board game, and they start to play. The first roll was Alan's. He started. Then some you hear bats being summoned into the chimney. Uh, then uh, uh, Sarah rolled, and then I forgot what happened, but when Alan rolled, he was essentially, it's kind of like with Monopoly when you're in jail. It's essentially that Jumanji sucked Alan into the world of Jumanji, essentially in timeout until somebody rolls a 5 or an 8. Then he'll be released. And because he was sucked inside, the bats ends up chasing out Sarah Whittle out the house. So the game was left unplayed. And we'll catch up to learn what happened to Sarah, but 26 years later, the Paris house was completely dilapidated, and well, not dilapidated, but it was left, uncared for. Eventually, put up for sale and bought out by the Shepherd family, where we meet Judy and Peter. Which, by the way, in this point in time, Kristen Dunst was on a heck of a tear in Hollywood because it's not too long after, because she was, I think her first role was in Interview with a Vampire, where she did like an amazing job in that. Just for the fact that she was like a tiny kid and she was like completely like crazy and like, but she was so good in that. Uh, uh, so we learned that Judy and Peter's parents died a year ago in a it was like a car accident in Canada, something like that. No, it was a ski trip in Canada. So the aunt uh, became the guardian of the children. That's when they start hearing the drum beats of the board game that's locked up in the attic. So the next day, while the aunt goes off to work, well, Judy and Peter supposed to have been off to school. They completely ditched that idea to find this game, and they started playing it because it's like four pieces, and the game is primarily focused on children playing. So that's why like no adults can hear the drum beats. Only children can, because it's trying to entice children to play. Uh, uh, I don't even want to think about if a toddler or a baby grabs hold of one of these game pieces and it's like counts it as their turn. Uh, Hopefully, like it won't. There's like an age, because like with any board game, there's an age restriction, like 6 and up kind of situation. So I kind of hope like the board game kind of applies here, like only 6 and up can play. Anyway, so as Judy and Peter starts playing, mosquitoes and monkeys start being summoned. Eventually, uh, uh, Peter rolls a 5, which not only releases a lion but also releases a full-grown Alan, who was trapped inside the jungle world of Jumanji. Which, by the way, I want to mention here that there was, I'm pretty sure it was Nickelodeon, made a TV show, an animated TV show about Jumanji, which I remember watching as a kid, but don't know if it lasted more than a season. No, it actually had 3 seasons, 40 episodes in total. Wow. Anyway, let me just see like the quick plot of this. Judy and Peter are two children who find a board game called Jumanji. Each turn, they are given a clue and then transported into the world of the game until they solve it, which allows them to leave. During their adventure, they meet Alan Paris, another player who became trapped in the game world because he never saw his clue and was unable to solve it to leave. And their main goal becomes freeing him from the game. Later, they free another player who calls himself the Master of Jumanji and who has been trapped for longer than Alan. Unlike Alan, he saw his clue but never solved it, despite trying to get others to solve it for him, but is able to solve it with the help of the kids. Alan later reveals that there have been other players of the game throughout time, many of whom left their toys in the cave that is part of his home, but not all of them survived the game. In the final episode, using a crystal that shows the past, the kids and Alan find his clue by observing his role and what the game said, and figure out why he never saw it. Right after he rolled, his mom called him to dinner, and as he was leaving, the clue appeared and he was transported into the game. When the clue revealed to him, uh, Alan realized he could have gotten out of Jumanji immediately when he got inside the game. Now that he knows his clue, Alan, with the help of Judy Peters, solves it and escapes Jumanji. Afterwards, the kids decide to destroy Jumanji so that no one else will suffer from it. Oh, so that was the premise? I don't know, like, it's been so long. Like, the whole. Because I remember watching it, but the entire. Because I know he's just constantly getting stuck in the game. It's kind of like a. I don't want to say like a running joke, but it was just like. Uh, why he couldn't get out, I couldn't remember. So it's like it's faded into memory. So anyway, yeah, it's been the lore and franchise of Jumanji is kind of like extensive than I remember. Uh, so I mean, do yourself a favor and try looking up the animated series of Jumanji, and you might get a kick out of it. Oh, it was aired on UPN Kids. Oh, remember UPN? That was like a thing in the '90s. Uh, I thought it was Nickelodeon, but it had the same kind of art style like the Wild Thornberries. Probably using the same animator for it. I do remember that distinct look. Anyway, uh, uh, Alan's released from the game, and to his horror, he realized that so much time has passed. His father uh, left his shoe factory uncared for. He spent all his resources to trying to find his son because he believed his son uh, ran away. Rumors spread throughout town that his father might have something to do with the mysterious disappearance of his son. Sarah Widow, despite initially claiming that the board game trapped his son inside, no one believed him because the game doesn't work with adults. So she is left to be like the local crazy person. Uh, so that's why it's just like her life just became in shambles. So uh, Judy and Peter convince Alan to continue the game. He has to because in order to get everything go back to normal and stop all these, because the mosquitoes are stinging people, putting them into fevers. All the stuff that was in Jumanji, little by little, is escaping out into the real world, causing havoc. So he has to continue with the game, but they need Sarah. So they find Sarah, and to her chagrin, is forced to continue with the game. But they made a pact because, you know, she felt bad because she she was a kid. She ran away, didn't bother to continue on playing in order to get a 5 or an 8 in order to release Alan out of that trap. Essentially, he had to survive on his own for years, going, dealing with the horrors of the world of Jumanji, with the, all the kind of like an African jungle setting, uh, including a game hunter who's trying to hunt him throughout his time living in there. So they continue playing. Then we see carnivorous plants show up. Some some of it got a paralyzing barbs that shoot out. Then a stampede, and then eventually Van Pelt is released, who is on like a mission to hunt and kill Alan. And as a matter of fact, it's kind of sort of explaining in the deep lore of Jumanji that Van Pelt, the reason he looks so much like his Alan's father, is just kind of like how children envision these creatures or whatever entities within the world. They apply their fears onto it. So the game hunter, because Alan had this kind of like a kind of fear of his father, and his warped perception of his father being like, face me like a man. He applied that to Van Pelt, who was an entirely different person long ago when he was a real man, but got because he was the one responsible of attacking the African village in the first place, which resulted in that tribesman to create this entire thing to save what's left of his people and suck, you know, everyone and everything inside. Uh, he pretty much became part of the world. So he doesn't know himself anymore. So uh, uh, eventually, bump into Carl, who's now working as a police officer. Um, he, reveals himself and apologizes to him because it's like, yeah, it's my fault that you went down this route. You could have been something if I didn't leave that shoe in the conveyor belt the way I did. But uh, the entire town, whole town's in havoc right now because of the released creatures and the game hunter. So, um, in the stampede, one of the pelicans grabbed the board game, flew off with it, and uh, thanks to Peter, managed to get out of the river. Uh, but Carl shows up, arrests him because he thinks he got something to do with all this craziness. But Peter tries to cheat, and the board game penalizes you heavily for trying to cheat. So, depending on like what game piece you chose, you will anthropomorphize into that character. So, since Peter chose the monkey, he started to show uh, resemblances of a monkey. Uh, 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 After escaping Van Pelt, who's trying to take the game to lure Alan into a bait to a trap, they manage to get the game, stop Van Pelt at least briefly, while they reconnoiter with Alan, who then proceeds to chastise Peter for cheating. But then he quickly kind of stops himself because he starts to repeat those same words of his father. And I thought this one is like a really good underrated scene. I don't think many people talk about that. Kind of stuck with me when he mentions, like, when he catches himself like that. He's like, wow, like 26 years in the jungle, and I still somehow turn into my father. And he decides, unlike his father, who didn't seem like he showed like empathy, Alan tries to do to Peter what he wished his father would have done to him. He knelt down, looked him straight in the eye, and comforted him. And so, oh yeah, and I mentioned earlier about them making a pact to finish the game because, you know, Sarah felt guilty because she never bothered to finish the game because she could have released Alan pretty much any time, but she felt afraid and she felt alone. But now, since they got a team, they don't have to do this alone because this game's not meant to be played alone. So they went back inside of the house, which is now pretty much darn near cracked in half, with all the plants, slowly taking over. They play the game. They continue to play the game. Then summon like a monsoon, which also had like crocodiles. Uh, 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 they went to higher ground, which eventually, by the way, the aunt shows up here and there and and meets up with Carl, because once she realized dangers was going on, she's kind of worried about the kids and starts to run back home, completely unaware about the whole situation and shocked by the look of Peter's monkey appearance. Um, uh, they continue to play the game. Alan get the floor Alan's uh, 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 standing on turns to quicksand, and uh, and then someone like I think Sarah rolled. I forget which. One of the kids rolled and summoned some spiders, which is kind of creepy for me. When they continue on, which causes like an earthquake, which completely breaks the house in half, which frees Alan because it's his turn now. And just when he's about to roll, because he's so close to making to the center, uh, Van Pelt shows up and stunned to see that Alan chose not to run away, because he finally took the heart to what his father was trying to teach him, the fact that needs to face his fears, which, by the way, he's been doing that through the entire, like not only inside the world of Jumanji, but outside as well, trying to finish the game. He, despite his fears, he faced all these horrors. Uh, so it's just, in a roundabout way, he ended up being the most courageous, more so than what his father probably expected, more so than what his father probably would have even tried. Uh, he's a this kid survived in a jungle, a supernatural jungle on his own for 26 years, through just sheer wits alone. That is more courage than most people expect any kid to have. So he rolled and managed to make it to Jumanji, which sucks up everything that was released back into the game and rewound time from the moment the game started. That's how it always happens. Whoever started the game, that's where the time rewinds back to that moment. So it's back to 1969. Because good thing, because Judy got hit by a poisonous bar from the plant. Uh, uh, so everything went back to the way it was, and uh, Alan sees his father walking back into the house. Like, it was just like a split second he was gone, and he runs to give him a hug and he apologizes, and his father apologizes back, saying like, "Look, you don't have to go to that boarding school if you don't want to. We'll talk about it later." And that's when you hear Alan confess about the whole shoe thing, trying to fix things, so it can go, things can go like more positively this time. And Sarah remarks to Alan that Judy and Peter, they don't exist yet. It's 1969 now, so they boarded up the board game, sends it into the river to hopefully to sink to the bottom, so it'll never be seen again. And then time goes back linear, where now they are grown up, they're married with a kid on the way, and they meet up with Judy and Peter and their parents, and it's Christmas time, perfect timing given the holidays is happening right now. They make sure that they don't take that ski trip at all. Please avoid it. And they, Alan, who's taking over the parachute factory with Carl as his right hand, he brings Judy and Peter's father on board as like head of marketing, just to stay close with the family and reconnect with the kids who have no knowledge of the whole situation. But there was a scene that was cut out. It's not even a deleted scene. It was just like completely something that I don't know if it was the director or the book author. I'm pretty sure it was the director. There was like an initial idea of them shooting a scene where Alan created the Jumanji shoes and handed it over to Judy and Peter, or handed something over to them where it kind of brings their memories back to the prior timeline. But thankfully, they decided to cut it out completely because it was kind of dumb. You can look up online. You can see the footage that was released, but wasn't included in the theatrical or even the DVD release. But it wouldn't, at least in my personal opinion, I don't think it would have worked. So I'm glad they kind of left that out. It's like, no, it's a completely new timeline. They don't need to know it about this, but it's just enough for Sarah and Alan to know. But then the movie ends where these French girls found the board game on the beach. And it's like, okay, how did this, unless they were actually French girls in America on the beach, or how did this board game make it all the way across the world to a beach in France? Either way is kind of dumb. It didn't make any sense. But at that time, it was the only movie. Jumanji in 1995 was the only Jumanji movie. So it didn't need to make any sense. You're going to say, oh, it's just magic. It just found its way somewhere in order to find some kids to get it and play it. Kind of like a creepy cliffhanger. And that's, at least for now, that's where the movie left it until Welcome to the Jungle in 2017 came out. Which kind of, they wanted to make a sequel or prequel to Jumanji, but they didn't think the origin story didn't it didn't pan out so well for a theatrical release. But they just revamped it to make it like a over a decade long sequel to it, with like a new cast of characters, which I'll talk about pretty soon. But yeah, that was Jumanji. Still such a good movie. I think they kind of overdid it with the sequels with Welcome to the Jungle and Next Level. Didn't watch Next Level, heard it was crap, and I saw the trailer. I immediately assumed crap because they brought in Danny Glover, another old guy who is like a well-known actor. I just can't remember the name, to come into the roles, into the cast, and it's like, okay, you at this point you're turning, you're losing your way. I mean, you managed to squeak by with Welcome to the Jungle with like a decent premise, which I'll talk about in a second. But man, clearly they was trying to milk this cow dry, and man, it fell flat. It really did. But anyway, let me know in the comments below what you think of Jumanji, the 1995 film. Probably one of Robin Williams' best character roles. It's right up there. Easily, probably, top 5, if not top 10 best roles. But yeah, I will see you guys in a minute as I will cover Jumanji: Welcome to the Jungle. So I'll see you guys later. Peace. Peace.